just outside London. I'm a design system consultant. Normally my Zoom calls, if you do book them with me, go better than this. So I am available for one-to-ones and office hours and all that kind of stuff. And I put in shit bullet points sometimes. Yeah, so, I mean, I was eating a pie the other day, and there was this on the side of the packet, and it felt apt. So yeah, we can, we collect these tokens, and we apparently cash them in for cool prizes. Always forget that terms and conditions apply when we do these things. God, right, we'll just start that. We'll work off here. So what are those cool prizes that we get? We get things like automation efficiency, apparently happy designers and developers, novelty socks, Token Studio stickers, which if you want some, come find me in the lobby and I'll point you to the nearest healthcare professional. So the terms and conditions when we work with these design tokens. Design tokens are experimental treatment. Users may struggle to see immediate results. Known side effects include hair loss, rapid weight gain, sleepless nights, anxiety, and heartbreak. Nobody ever reads the terms and conditions. Load of fucking bollocks. Right, so on to systemic Storo. Talking about a few things here, things that are just kind of breaking my heart these days. The tools, the work, the brand, the logic or lack thereof. So, tools. The processes that we have are kind of limited by the tools we have available to us. Anyone here a tool maker, makes their own tools, indie developer, or works for a big corporation, or does anything? Great, right, I can slag you all off. So, yeah, there's kind of like two sides to the scale here. I kind of sat on that indie developer side. I did work for Adobe a long time ago, but never actually built anything. And yeah, there's two sides to the scale here. So these mega tools that, we get the pros there of them being sort of standardized, somewhat stable, rather robust and reliable. But, we get the cons there of limited innovation. They're sometimes rather high cost, and they neglect the needs of specialists as they sort of grow and look for new markets. On the other side, indie developers kind of flip that, and that they build things that are very specific, but are unstable, fragile, unreliable. All words I use to describe myself these days. So there's possibly a correlation here. Who knows? Maybe. Around the more rectangles we drag, the more knuckles the tool makers drag. Possibly. Screw you guys. And then one laugh, thank you. There you go. There you go. Great. Okay, so yeah, there's questions around interoperability here. Long word, I nailed it. Fantastic. So all we're fucking doing is uploading and downloading JSON all the time and versioning it, and I'm sick of it and sending zip files of JSON to developers over Slack and, fucking hate my fucking life. Yeah, there's also a lot of speculation around the specification. If you're not aware of the specification, I'm talking about the Design Tokens Community Draft, which I first heard about with Jerry. I can't see Cristiano, but at Cristiano's old office way back when I first was a design systems baby and didn't have a beard. So speculation around this spec is, questions around like, why aren't you adopting the specification? It doesn't do what I want, so I don't contribute. And then, the general, why would I contribute to something I don't use? Probably the same story for all fucking design systems. So the first of many heartbreaks. Thanks everyone for sticking heartbreak emojis in your slides to, keep a theme going across the whole conference. Next section, the work that we're doing. So I'm just a bit pissed off that all we're doing as product designers is copying each other. The competitive landscape here is getting all a bit samey. Well, questions we ask ourselves are, how do our competitors do this? What's the industry standard? And we follow a double diamond process that looks something like this. Copying each other, making bullshit fucking decks. Nothing ever changes, and we kind of do it over and over again. T-shirts are available in the lobby. Help me pay my pension. So this is how I sort of see the industry going in terms of these four graphs. We're sort of converging, nice, with our competition. So where used to be different, we're now sort of just all going in the same direction. We have less and less budget each year because scumbags lay us off. The expectations of those stakeholders keep going higher, the expectations of our audience, and all that kind of stuff. And trends change, what was Brat Summer, I think we're now in Pumpkin Spice Apocalypse Autumn or something like that. So, more fucking heartbreak. And then onto the brand. Being able to deliver brand at scale is a business advantage for us. But we're shit at it. Our brand sites lack their own identity, is kind of like, the voice of House of Brands. And then all of our client sites look similar when we're working with white label vendors. Here's two scumbags from Lizard People. TalkSport and The Sun. I worked on both so I can slag them off. Meant to be different sites, look exactly the fucking same. Because all we ever do when we rebrand the design system is stick a tick in our backlog that says, let's just do fonts and colors, people, and anything ambitious is out of scope. Oh, fucking heartbreak. Right, okay, so onto the logic or lack thereof. We might get a set of brand guidelines from a flat white drinking bloke in a mustache that doesn't understand how design systems work. We then have to turn that into a color ramp, turn that into a palette of, greens and reds and blues, and I hate my life. So suppose we needed to add an additional palette with the same logic here. Another section of the website comes up, or somebody says, Luke, can we have a purple color for AI? Sure. So where was all this logic stored when we did all this color work? Turns out it fucking wasn't. More heartbreak. So I'm out of hit points and the game's over. And so we need to insert some new tokens to continue the game that nobody likes playing. So how about changing approach to the things we're doing here? How about changing approach to technology? There we go. All right, so naming design decisions is the talk I did in Prague in June. I've changed my mind since then. All we're really doing when working with design tokens here is naming the outcomes of these design decisions. We need to work in a way that allows us to pivot and ease and store logic in the design tokens that we're doing, all the while being flexible and agile, non-destructive, and collaboration, and all that kind of stuff, design system, spunk. So, logical reasoning, the next section. The 4 stages of design system grief. What if? So what if we did store the logic behind these decisions? How would that look? So you might have seen something like this on Twitter if you're still there and haven't ran away. How do we define the outer border radius? Stick a couple of numbers together, Bob's your uncle. The tokens that we use here, could store this arithmetic. It's very simple. If we're working in CSS, we can use calcs and do that kind of stuff. Could with a big asterisk because it's non-spec because nobody trusts the spec, but some tools have it. And here, an example from Alex Vidua, who's built a tool called Beautiful Shadows. It's got a nice one called Glow. We have all these inputs that we can sort of ingest into our design system or the designs that we're doing. So here I can sort of change the color, the angle, the distance of a light, the brightness and the elevation, and then it outputs me a load of shadows. The issue I have with that is that these are black boxes of magic, where you have some inputs and some outputs, and we're manually copy and pasting values between all these things. It sucks. This is less so, where we could, if we change something further up the tool chain, maybe that color of that shadow was tied to a token. It'd be nice if that went down the chain, wouldn't it? But it never does. So how can we connect all those tools together? There's this concept when we work in CAD called parametrics, associations, and constraints. If you've ever used something like SolidWorks or any sort of like architectural visualization tools, you may be familiar with these things. But the idea behind these things is that like parametrics, a bit like variables at this point, you can name a value here, so you can create and control variable properties within your system. So maybe you've got like radius 2 is 8 pixels and space 4 is 8 pixels. Associations, we might think of this like aliasing in sort of like token and variable land, where we can define relationships and dependencies for these elements. So button radius is radius 2, and the bar padding is space 4. Now constraints, this is something that we don't really have in our current design tools for UI and UX. But constraints here are like rules that govern behaviors. So, the button radius and button bar padding, we could add those together to get the radius of the bar. But, God forbid a design tool implements something like that. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? So, on to breaking down. We've done enough of that today, Jesus. So the styles that we have in our design systems tend to change, right? With every brand, product, platform, accessibility mode, language that we use, the scale, the color scheme. I was going to animate that, but I'm lazy just to think that I did. There's a lot of things there, and we can focus on them one by one. So where we get overwhelmed by the amount of things we have to change in our design system to manage multi-dimensional theming, if we break that down, focus on them one by one, what we can then do is define inputs for these generative functions. And the way that we do that is by sort of like isolating, identifying what changes across each mode, and then generalizing, so creating a rule that allows you to define any point within a scale. So the way that kind of looks, if we go to starting over with logical reasoning, something you might be familiar with, like dynamic typography, spacing and sizing, things like Nate Baldwin's Proportia you might have seen, or Spencer Mortison's type scales. So this might be something that you kind of look like in your sheet of variables or design tokens. We have a base font size there. Font size 0 is 16 pixels. If you're wondering why it says M1 and M2, those are negative values. If you use a minus or a hyphen, that gets fucked. We use an M, and then larger size of that scale, all the way from like 16 up to 40 pixels. But then, that might be our medium type scale. If we want to adjust our interface scaling for users, to accessibility needs or whatever, we might end up with like 5 modes there, going from very small to very large. If I expand that out, I've now got a table of 40 values to manage, and I can't be bothered. More tokens, more work, more modes, can't be bothered. And it's important to remember that you're not a computer, but your computer is. So just let your computer do the work. If we extract out all the logic that we had in those type scales, this is from Spencer Mortison, or kind of, sort of. Here we can take font size value I, so I being like a point on an index or an iterator. We can equal that value to font size value 0, so that base 16 points. Multiply that by a ratio that we define, and that ratio is then to the power of the index on the scale. And then we can round it, because apparently you guys don't like decimals. I don't give a fuck. And so, then we can change the font size with each mode. We could also change the ratio. And so we might end up with, text size becomes a user preference, and then we could change the ratio across breakpoints and have fluid, wonderful dynamic typography. So our tables then kind of look like this, where we just have the output of a load of functions. We change all the numbers just for the mode font size 0. We don't have to worry about the other ones anymore. And so we have to manage less things. Now I'm down to about 13 tokens rather than 40. And here, modes just define what changes. So how do we function? Barely, apparently. So I want to talk about abstraction, booleans, and conditionals here. Suppose we have a device. All right, here I've got, fancy iPhone 16 Pro, company perk. So width and height, two dimensions here on this device. But it turns out you can turn your phone around. Don't know if people knew this. And then the width and the height of the viewport changes. How do we deal with that? So you might do something like storing portrait mode and landscape mode within your variables or your tokens, right? And so you can have those numbers, and you might do the same for desktop. Hands up if anyone has desktop in portrait mode. Developer. But if we abstract these things out, we could define the major axis, or the long side, and the minor axis, the short side of this device. And then as we rotate it around, we can abstract that logic out. So the other thing we'd have to do is store a Boolean that tracks the orientation of the device. And so here I've got a token called portrait. In portrait mode, its value is true, turns out. Who fucking knew? And in landscape, it's not portrait, so we set the value to false. We can then do these things with conditional values here. This is called a ternary. You've all learned something today. Well done. So a token called view width, for example, if we go through this, so view portrait, the token that is either true or false, we ask it a question. Are you true? If you are true, show the viewport minor. Otherwise, show the viewport major. And so we can then abstract out all our logic. We only need to store the major and minor axes of each device. It's much easier if we want to store multiple devices, and we store the orientation. So therefore, we've abstracted out the two pieces of logic there. Orientation is different to device size, and therefore they should live in different places, but talk to each other. If only you could do that in Figma. So then our token set kind of looks like this for being able to store device orientation and stuff like that. And then with that, we could do things like have orientation-specific layouts. So we could have a calendar app with columns. That's not really showing up well. Shit, designer Luke, well done. But yeah, grids could be calculated as a percentage of width there. And so other things we could do with this, right, is we could toggle the component visibility depending on a Boolean value. We could swap instances conditionally. A nice one that I want to sort of play with is being able to increase the contrast of the color. If the text is small, we could ask the text, "Are you small?" And then it says yes, and then we change the contrast color. And also, removing things like removing animations and stuff like that if users prefer reduced motion. All stuff you could do if only people stop dragging their knuckles. So, I'm a bit wound up, as you can probably tell. So how do we reignite the passion, find the love for this stuff again? It's sort of broken down and ran out of romantic connotations, and it's just talking about tokenized text and interactions with light and color, because I'm a fucking nerd. So, thanks, Natalie, for this. Content designers design with words. Miserable designers design with tokens. I hate my job. So what can we do with tokenized text? Things like localization and internationalization. Here for our American patriots, we might have a recipe. It's not bad, but according to you guys, it's awesome. We're making biscuits, but you guys call them cookies for some reason. And just adopt the metric system already. Why is 100 grams of butter 0.881847 of butter? Thank you, Donnie. So things we could do with this, right, is mock data and prototyping, if anyone still does that. We could have brand consistency. Jerry knows how much I got annoyed with developers typing newskit wrong. It's a capital K. That could just be a token. And microcopy, which we might go on to. Being able to do translations as well. I'm learning French because I work with a bunch of French people, and all their calendars are weird. So learning that is fun. You could do that kind of easily with design tokens. Language is a mode. But what about complex strings? Shout out to the content designers here. Verbs and noun coming straight from the underground. Can we do stuff like this? Thank you, Jerry. If you followed Hayden's advice yesterday, you've probably been verbing the noun all night. And, or something a bit more palatable. Hello, username, welcome to brand. Can we do these things? Not easily. So variables, you can have a string token, but something like inline aliasing, where we've got those verbs and nouns in the middle of sentences, we can't do at the moment. And being able to transform these text things, we can't do either. Within basic tokens, inline aliasing is a thing. And then in complex tokens, you could do all of these if somebody bothered to build them. So, things we could do with this is like translate a greeting into French or, make me more friendly and palatable. Doubtful. Other things we can do here is respond to user needs. If you use a 24-hour clock format or military time, and 12-hour clock formats if you're strange. The next thing I want to talk about in my rant of nerdiness is interactions of light and color. Something I really enjoyed out of Material, it was about the only thing I enjoyed out of Material, was this that they did, I think about 9 years ago. They were nerdier than me, which is surprising. They printed out a bunch of paper stock, constructed parts of their UI, and just shone a light at it and saw how that kind of stuff worked. So I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. Could we do that? And so, you might have, your design might look something like this, where you've got a light source. Most of my feedback these days for other designers is, where's your light source? You might have a highlight on a card, a surface, a form shadow, ambient occlusion, and car shadow. The difference between form shadow and car shadow there is that the colors are different. So form shadow would be, as something curves, its color changes versus the light it obscures being a car shadow. God, you're a nerd, Luke. God, you're a nerd, Luke. So this is the Lambertian shading model. And so here I can get a bunch of inputs, right, for color, intensity, and direction of light. I can get the color and angle of a surface, and based on how light bounces off a surface, the color of a pixel changes. That's 3D rendering simplified to a chart. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. And things we can do with that. All right, so we can change things like the material of the color and the direction of the light, and you can get pretty spheres. Not very useful for UI design, Luke. Why are you talking about this? So we could do UI design things with this, right? Here I've got a simple clock that changes its interface with the time of day. So at dawn, we get a nice, amber kind of glow. At midday, it's clinically white. And at nighttime, it's, kind of nice and, dark and I'm getting ready for bed. This is all done by just me animating the property of the color of the light over time. We could do other things here, maybe plumb into other data sources. Something that we could do with tokens if we're a bit more ambitious was actually look at other influences for our designs rather than just numbers and fonts and colors. We could influence them from external things, like how would the copy change depending on an audience's mood? Or could I respond to health data and display something different? Oh, Jesus Christ, I'm a nerd. Okay, so after a bit of nerdery, I'm kind of back to full health and loving design again. You guys probably aren't, but whatever, it's my talk, not yours. So I want to leave on some, hinge bios and, romantic cliches and all that kind of stuff. So, guys, it's not about the destination. It's about the journey. If the system can't handle you at your worst, it doesn't deserve you at your best. Keep a box under the bed with all your system memories. I've mostly got a load of news kit pens and a mug. But what I really mean here is store that logic and document it, for fuck's sake, because we can't store logic in the tokens yet, so actually write down what you've done before I pick it up and go, why did you do this? And yeah, closing thoughts here. This is from Vicente Gonzalez. He was talking about Pixel's universal scene descriptor, which is essentially design tokens for 3D scenes and being able to design stuff. I think it's a pretty good sort of mantra for how we can be going forwards. Like, I'm not asking for perfection here. I don't expect that. But just, if we all follow one standard, things are a lot easier. We've got a code of conduct for life, right? Oh, I missed the last slide because we've had to change it over, but I need a hug. All right, that's it. Enjoy yourselves.